Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss something which I had not intended to talk about because it shouldn't be of particular interest other than maybe to like political geeks like me, and yet it is. Keir Starmer has made three very surprising appointments to his government which have got people very excited, and they most certainly speak of a Prime Minister who wants to make serious reforms. Quite funny because I had a comment on one of the videos from yesterday saying the first issue is to get Starmer to get some integrity. Now it's like, funny you should say so. Obviously, now that Starmer is Prime Minister, there's no need to keep pointing out, well, you know, should we look at what he's done in the past as a way of highlighting not only his integrity, but his determination and ability to get things done? He's in power. It's now up to him to prove himself in the toughest job he'll ever have. And before the sun set on his first day in government, he's already done it. Now, I could just say of his government that at the very least, people are going to see what it's like to have competent ministers. The Conservatives long ago prioritised loyalty to the unholy Brexit over any pretence at administrative ability, and it has shown. You know, we often focus on like the terrible politics of people like Braverman and Jenrick and Cleverly and Raab and Coffey, but they were also fundamentally useless. They weren't able to implement their own policies because they simply didn't know how. It was like the silver lining to their government. They could have done way worse things, but stupid evil. Remember, Dominic Raab was supposed to abolish the Human Rights Act and replace it with his Bill of Rights. Didn't do it. Not because he had a change of heart. He was just unable to work out how to do it. He's not a clever man. I will always say, if you're looking at a politician and thinking, yeah, I like their policies, you still have to consider if they actually have a plan to deliver them. A lot of the time they don't. Well, Starmer has appointed his cabinet. It's full of people who know how they're going to work. Some are untested, absolutely, and some may not be as good as others when they're put to the test. We'll have to wait. But they will be head and shoulders above the absolute trash we've had recently. But you may say, well, Phil, you're Labour, you've got, you know, this sort of blind faith in them. It's like, okay, we can wait on that. But there are three appointments that Starmer made yesterday which caused a major ripple. They're not political appointments, but they do point at a much more serious government. Now, because all three of these appointments were not MPs, they're not Labour MPs, they're not any MPs. They all had to be appointed to the House of Lords if they hadn't already been in there, like one of them was already in the House of Lords anyway. A bit like when Rishi Sunak wanted to make David Cameron Foreign Secretary, because to serve in the government, you have to be a member of Parliament, either an MP or a member of the House of Lords. And this does happen for the odd appointment. You do get this happening. But this is next level. Like, you know, you think back to like Zach Goldsmith. So he was a Tory MP on and off. But more importantly, he was a rich mate of Boris Johnson. He used to keep giving him freebie luxury holidays. But he was a rubbish politician and he kept losing his seats. What do you mean you've lost the election? I gave you a really safe Tory seat. Oh, I'm sorry, Boris. I'm not very good. So in order for Boris Johnson to have him in his government, he had to just appoint him to the House of Lords. Don't worry, Zach, the old China will just ignore the voters, put you in the House of Lords. That's how the Tories used to use this. They used the House of Lords route to just appoint their mates to government. What Starmer has done here is the opposite. He's appointed people in order to get experts into his government who would never go down the usual political route. The first is Richard Hermer, KC, to the role of Attorney General. Now, this was Emily Thornberry's position before the election. I'm going to say I hope she gets a good role in the new government. But appointing Hermer to the role immediately got every senior lawyer I follow on Twitter going, oh, what's going on here? I'll tell you why it's such a departure from the Tories and indeed the last Labour government. The role of Attorney General is to advise the government on legal issues. It's to tell the cabinet, literally, if their plans are actually lawful. Their job, when cabinet are discussing something, if it's not legal, is to say, you can't do that. When Boris Johnson appointed Suella Braverman to the role, he appointed someone whose job was to simply tell the cabinet that anything Johnson wanted to do was fine. It was her job to work out how you could say it was legal. It was very Trumpian. Braverman was the worst Attorney General we've ever had. This appointment by Starmer is the polar opposite. You usually appoint a senior barrister within your parliamentary party. There's always loads of barristers in Parliament. Yes, they are supposed to have the integrity to tell their colleagues, you cannot do that. But they are political, they're politicians. This appointment is not. Hermer is a top lawyer, has the respect of the legal profession, and is independent. He's not going to cover for a government trying to play fast and loose with the law, because there's no political benefit in him doing so. And all he would do is trash his own reputation. He will just say, no, you can't do that, it's illegal. And he will resign if the government insists on going ahead anyway. If our new government tries to do anything dodgy, he will say so. Now, being in the Lords, of course, then will make it tricky for him to report those views to the House of Commons. But it has been, it was noted with David Cameron, for example, there are systems that allow someone from the House of Lords to report to the House of Commons and take questions. And I hope Starmer makes use of that. I don't want any go-betweens. But this appointment is Keir Starmer not just saying that his government will act with integrity. The last one said that, do you remember? He's proven it. If he planned on doing anything even slightly iffy, he would not be appointing someone so independent to this role. He'd be appointing someone who'd be loyal to the cause. Then we had the appointment of Patrick Vallance as Science Minister. This was the Chief Scientific Officer at the time the pandemic hit. Starmer has appointed one of the country's top scientists to the role of Science Minister in a way that sort of says to him, look, we're sorry what happened in 2020. You've now got a government that's going to listen to you. A sign that he not only wants integrity in his government, expertise. We're actually going to have someone who understands science working on science policy. This is a clear sign that Labour are taking this seriously. One of my major concerns in politics all the time, it's just baked in. There's a form of representation which just seems impossible. You know, this new parliament, it's got like just over 40% women, I think. It's the cabinet is the most state-educated cabinet the country has ever had. You know, we've got an education secretary who had free school meals. We've got the lowest percentage ever of cabinet ministers who went to private school. You know, so in terms of like representation of the general public, it's got a lot better with this election, right? You know, people really have voted for a much more representative parliament. But we've also got a government and a parliament with a disproportionate number of MPs who come from a particular academic background, and that background is not science or engineering. You always have plenty of MPs to choose from who are experts in history or literature or economics or law, or even medicine in terms of the scientific background, but you get hardly any MPs with a scientific academic background. So it's slim pickings when appointing people who need to drive your science agenda. So Starmer's just said, well, why don't I just appoint one of the country's top scientists then? Which is like mind-blowing. But the third of the appointments I want to talk about is the one that's like really amazing. So making Hermer the Attorney General says this government means it about acting with integrity. Making Vallance the Science Minister says this government is not sick of experts, we need them. The third of this little flurry of non-political appointments says this government is not going to tinker around the edges. We're not just going to fix things. We're going to bring in major reforms. We're going to change the way things work fundamentally. We're not going to patch up a broken system. We're going to change the system. Starmer has made James Timpson the prisons minister. Now, I cannot tell you how many barristers I've just seen wide-eyed looking at this appointment, completely blown away by what it means. Now, for those who don't know, Timpson's a company which like cuts keys, does dry cleaning, stuff like that. But the CEO, James Timpson, famously employs former prisoners. He's the chair of the Prison Reform Trust. He's like a genuine philanthropist, rare enough these days, with a real interest and expertise in the prison system, probation, rehabilitation. And Starmer just made him prisons minister. Now, the state of our prison system is one of the urgent crises that Labour have to deal with from day one, so basically yesterday. They're full again. Labour have got no option but to carry on releasing prisoners early in order to keep the system from completely collapsing, as the Tories have been doing for nearly a year now. As Starmer said, you can't just wave a magic wand and conjure up a new prison. Certainly not the staff as well. But one solution to the current crisis is, well, you just build more prisons, get more courts working, clear the backlog of criminal cases, and then the system would be managed competently. It will take time, but you could restore the criminal justice system by just doing that, and it would work to the satisfaction of the public. But Labour have always said, hang on a minute, there's root causes of problems we should fix here, and then we don't need so many prisons. The last Labour government made a big thing of deal with the causes of crime, not just waiting for people to break the law and then dealing with the punishment afterwards. This appointment goes a step further because it works at the other end of it as well. I mean, how often do we wish that governments would just listen to the people who understand the systems and have some good advice for fixing it? Starmer's gone a step further, just gone, well, why don't I just appoint the minister then? And again, I'll repeat the point. These are not people who are going to prioritise Labour's political project. They're independent experts who have an interest in those roles, and they will be interested on delivering those outcomes in the national interest. That's their focus. You show these guys, oh, have you seen what the Telegraph's got to say today? Or, oh, have you seen the latest voting intention polls? They go, I don't care. I don't care about that. They won't give a shit. So although I appreciate people will want to see real results before getting too excited about this Labour government, and that's not just reasonable but sensible, I would say these appointments should definitely show people this government means to be different. We're not going to see 5 years of tinkering and then another flat choice for people. Yes, Starmer still has a lot of proving to do, even for me in some areas. But you look at his first day in the job, officially scraps the Rwanda plan, appoints these 3 non-political ministers to key roles, and that they've just made people sit up and take notice. This was unexpected and very welcome. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.